Hi, this is Tom Needham, and you're listening to The Sounds of Film. And our very special guest tonight is Tom Kenny. He's the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants. He also hosts new SpongeBob shows as Patchy the Pirate. He's done many voices for lots of different shows through the years, including the Powerpuff Girls, and he's done voices for Winnie the Pooh, Meet the Robinsons, and the Boondocks. And you've heard him many times on The Sounds of Film because there's lots of music on SpongeBob SquarePants, and we've been playing it through the years. They put out many CDs, and one of those is one of my favorites, The Best Day Ever, which was critically acclaimed and featured many great session players and also the amazing Brian Wilson. We'll be speaking for Tom Kenny today about his new SpongeBob Christmas special and CD, and we're very happy, Tom, to have you on the program.
Oh, thanks, Tom. Happy to be part of programming. It's going to be fun.
Well, the name of the show is The Sounds of Film, and we play a lot of soundtrack music, but we also, talk about TV shows and movies and stuff like that. And we've been playing a lot of the SpongeBob Christmas CD, and I want to congratulate you. You've been very involved in this CD, not just doing the voices, but I understand that you wrote a lot of the music, too, for this special.
Yeah, pretty much on, definitely for Don't Be a Jerk, It's Christmas, which is the song that kind of served as the springboard for the plot of the special. That was a song that was co-written by myself and Andy Paley, who also produced most of It's a SpongeBob Christmas album. We wrote that way back in 2009.
Right.
Kind of as a little stocking stuffer or something to put on the desks of the people that work on the show and a couple of the suits at Nickelodeon, before the Christmas break in 2009, we were just running through Nickelodeon, dropping these homemade, self-burned CDs on people's desks with this funny little song we wrote. And lo and behold, it was a couple of years later when they said, we're thinking of doing a Christmas special. It's going to be stop motion and in that old Rankin Bass style. Do you think we can expand the song? And I said, I've got a great idea for a story, which of course I didn't. But you always learn to lie in show business and say that you've got something, and then deal with the fact that you don't have anything later. So that's how that started out. So Andy and I cobbled out this this plot, this storyline where there's an element called jerktonium that a meteor of jerktonium crash lands in Bikini Bottom, and the radiation turns people into jerks, kind of pugnacious, bullyish, unpleasant behavior manifesting itself through this exposure to jerktonium.
Right.
So it's weird. I'm always amazed that you plant these little seeds or some goofy little thing that you made, just for people to bring home for Christmas. The people that worked on the show, the staff of the show, and kind of turns into this whole morphs into this whole different thing. A couple of years later,
that's really exciting.
Ceases to amaze me.
I recently watched Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer DVD, and I was watching some of the behind-the-scenes stuff as they talked about the history of the program and how when they first created the show, they had no idea that it would go on to become one of these perennial favorites, and how huge it's really become. And it seems impossible to get bigger than SpongeBob already is. But I was wondering, when you set out to make this special, were you trying to come up with something that would just kind of fit along with what's SpongeBob usually is and try to appeal to its main base, or were you trying to, in the back of your mind, create something that might be around for many, many years as a separate holiday film that people enjoy?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, in general, SpongeBob is something that the fact that it got so huge and continues to be still so visible and popular after all these years is still kind of mystifying and mind-blowing to all involved, I have to say.
Right.
Way back in 1997 when we made this 7-minute short film that Steve Hillenburg had showed to me in the form of some drawings that were in a folder in the bottom of his desk. I don't know, is this any good? He showed it to me, and I loved it immediately. We made this 7-minute short. We were amazed when that got picked up to be a series, and then we were amazed when the series, went longer than a couple of seasons. And then, as it started to steamroll into this giant, eventually global, again much to our surprise, phenomenon, it's just it continues to be very gratifying, but also really surprising and kind of head-scratchingly mysterious. And with the Christmas special, they wanted something that did have some of that heart of the old specials. When Russell Hicks asked me to put on my thinking cap and come up with a storyline that would springboard off of "Don't Be a Jerk, It's Christmas" as a concept, I was trying to think of those specials, because they all have those heartfelt moments. Rudolph definitely has them, and the Charlie Brown special. It's Charlie Brown Christmas has it, and the Grinch, definitely has it. I mean, when the Grinch's heart grows at the end of the episode, you there's a tear in your eye. You feel it, like, wow, this guy has really changed. So we definitely were trying to come up with something that fit in with SpongeBob and the SpongeBob, aesthetic,
right?
The SpongeBob philosophical aesthetic, but had that heart moment, and I think the special does that reasonably well. In my original draft, there was an added beat where this is a spoiler alert, but heck, it's on. It's probably already aired by the time people will be hearing this. So the plot of the special, just to belabor it even more, is that Plankton takes these jerktonium pieces of the jerktonium meteor, bakes it into fruitcake, disseminates it to everyone in Bikini Bottom, causing a pandemic of jerkiness to occur at the season when you're supposed to be at your kindest,
right,
fellow man. And so I had added a beat in the original version where Plankton, the villain, finds out that it's actually fool's jerktonium. It wasn't real jerktonium, forcing the occupants of Bikini Bottom to have to deal with the fact that they really were being jerks at Christmas, and they can't blame this thing, this substance for their behavior. And I thought that was kind of a nice little.
Yeah.
Oh, we have been treating each other rather horribly, and we were blaming this MacGuffin here, and we can't blame that anymore. But that wound up. I think maybe Nickelodeon thought that was too much. But there's plenty of other stuff.
Well, one of the things I love about the special is also the music, and there's a great collection of songs, and those songs are available on iTunes, and I have a CD version I've been listening to. I understand that you grew up here in New York, in Syracuse. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, Syracuse. Yeah, CNY.
And
Effect.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said Lake Effect.
And that, like, you were involved in music, that you were in a band, and you really do have strong ties to music. And I was wondering how your musical beginnings have contributed to the music that's been in SpongeBob through the years.
Yeah, I mean, I always loved music, always loved rock and roll, and I'm 50 years old, so I was 14 in 1976. So, long story short, I was somebody who was always listening to. I always liked old stuff. I always listened to the oldies radio, and we listened to that great 50s rock and roll and doo-wop and Little Richard and Buddy Holly and Carl Perkins and Elvis and all that stuff. And I loved it, but was always a little bit sad that there wasn't anything current, at least in 1975 or 6 or whatever, that I could find in Syracuse that had that same energy and had that same spark. And of course, being 1976, suddenly the Ramones and the Sex Pistols and all these bands that really did harken back to that old stuff that I liked. I could hear the Beach Boys influence in the Ramones, and I could, you could tell that bands like the Cramps and all these new, it's like, wow, these rock and roll bands are new, but they like the same crazy old stuff that I do. And I used to wander around Syracuse wondering why Journey and REO Speedwagon didn't do it for me, what they seemed to do for everybody else that I knew. And so I got in a band and started playing like millions of other people at that time, and started writing songs and collaborating with some funny, talented guys that I knew in Syracuse. We had a band called the Tearjerkers, and played out, and I was I was playing at bars when I was far too young to actually legally be in bars, and different times then. Nobody really asked too many questions. I was the youngest guy in the band, and all that stuff. Again, like I was talking about the song "Don't Be a Jerk, It's Christmas," where little things that you don't think are that important at the time come back and actually pay benefits that you hadn't foreseen. When I started doing a lot of voiceovers in cartoons, a lot of these cartoons had a lot of singing, and you had to learn songs very quickly because they would say, "Oh, we just finished this song last night, but we need to get it in at the end of this recording today in order to get the animation to the studio in Korea or wherever." So, just all those skills of having to play 3 sets a night and memorize a whole bunch of songs really quickly, and all that really did pay off in voiceover, in animation voiceover, the same way that having done a lot of stand-up comedy and made my living at that for a bunch of years had benefits where, just being able to ad-lib and think quickly on your feet and riff and, my sketch, I had a sketch comedy background.
Yeah.
So working with other actors and things that you learned while you were doing that, suddenly you would realize that they were more applicable than you.
Yeah, these are all valuable skills that you're able to apply.
These are skills that I didn't think would come in that handy, and they're all coming in handy, and kind of autodidactically picking up these skills here and there over the years as you're fumbling towards whatever your final career or ultimate day job, or we'll call it what you will, is going to be.
Right.
And for me, the voiceover thing was something that I always wanted to do, but it was hard to break into. So in the meantime, while I was figuring out how to do that, you're playing in bands and you're doing stand-up and you're acting in sketch comedy groups and just doing other creative things. But boy, every lesson that you pick up along the way seems to come in handy at some point where it's like, I know how to do this. Probably somebody who wasn't in a goofy pop rock band wouldn't know how to do this, but I know how to do this. And when Nickelodeon gave me the opportunity to write some music for the show, I immediately went to Andy Paley, who was a friend of mine, and I started out being a fan before I had ever met him. And his musical resume is pretty impressive.
Right.
It has tons of stuff I like on it. All these records that I like were produced by this Andy Paley guy, or he played on them. And we started writing songs together. And
I understand that you've worked with a lot of great.
And then some of the other cartoon series that I was doing voiceovers on would say, "Hey, you write songs, right? Hey, do you want to write the song for the Valentine's Day episode or whatever?" So it kind of turned into this fun little side project, ancillary income thing. Like, hey, I'm in BMI now.
And you're hugely successful at it, and I guess it's really due to your appreciation of all those little details that you grew to love when you were younger, and also when you were playing. I remember reading one interview with you that kind of really just excited me, because here in the Sounds of Film, we play a lot of soundtrack music, and in one interview you were talking about how for one of your sessions you had a very famous harmonica player, and you were like, "Oh, you played on Sanford and Son and on all these different classic tracks," and that's the kind of thing that would excite me and a lot of our listeners. And it seemed like you had a real appreciation for all these different
it's
things.
Funny, there's a certain type of person, and probably 99% of them in the world are listening to your show.
Right.
It's probably not a huge constituency of us weirdo freaks who care about this stuff. Just session players, and like that documentary, The Wrecking Crew.
Right.
That's I don't know if it's out officially, but they're kickstarting and trying to get music clearances for it. Did you see that film?
Yes.
And I guess I always felt an affinity for that kind of performer because, in my mind, that's kind of what I am. Like, people go, "Oh, what's it like to be an actor? Wow, it must be so exciting to be an actor." And it's like, I'm not really an actor in the, I guess I am, but my life is more like a session musician. My life is probably more like Hal Blaine's than it is like Tom Cruise's.
That's interesting.
You know what I mean? You go and you're sort of, you sort of are responsible for pitching in on all these projects, and some of them manage to have a pretty high level of visibility, and some of them don't. But it's you're just kind of like a journeyman guy, showing up with your drumsticks and trying to have a fun collaboration and make things good, make something that's good. And I always identified with those guys. Like most people obviously don't know who Tommy Tedeschi and Carol Kay and Hal Blaine and Tommy Morgan, the harmonica player you alluded to earlier, are. But I was always keenly aware of who they were, the same way that I was keenly aware of who character actors were. When I would watch a movie, I was never looking at the movie star. I was looking at the little character actor in the background, the guy playing the bartender, going, that guy's awesome. I think I'd rather be that guy than the star. For one thing, I can look in the mirror and know that I'm not going to be the rugged, handsome star, but I might be able to be the fussy hotel clerk. That might be. Maybe I can just be Mr. Whipple and squeeze the Charmin for 40 years.
Well, I think you're being a little modest. You're really, truly a legend. I mean, the work that you've done, is going to last for a very long time, and you've had incredible success. We're talking to Tom Kenny. He's the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants, and he has an amazing SpongeBob Christmas special that's airing now on Nickelodeon, and an album to go along with it. And there's so much I want to talk to you about because you've done so many amazing things. One really funny thing I wanted to mention that's on the album. I'm a big fan of the Beach Boys Christmas album.
Oh, great! Me too. One of our go-tos.
Yeah, and I thought it was so hilarious that you have that spoken message at the end of the CD.
Yes, which Spectre always also heads on his, right?
Yeah.
This is so Spectre.
So that was really funny.
I know that. I just always love that. And one thing that Andy and I bonded over when we first met was our almost insane devotion of Beach Boys minutia. Like, to me, I don't know why, the Beach Boys are the most endlessly fascinating rock and roll band of all time. 10 times more than the Beatles or the Who or anybody, because you've got the family thing going on. You've got cousins and brothers, and their dad is the manager. So added to the usual dysfunction of a group of musicians in a rock band, you've got this Shakespearean familial thing happening that just, to me, raises the Beach Boys to, just Shakespearean levels of just, soap opera and craziness, and let us not forget, great, great music. And one of the things that Andy and I bonded over was that we both noticed that at the end of that Beach Boys Christmas album, during the Christmas greeting, Dennis Wilson giving the message, "Hi, this is Denny. On behalf of myself, Brian," they're playing Old Lang Syne in the background. He says, "If you happen to be listening to this record," he skips, he stumbles on "hap," and they left it in there. And Andy and I were going, Brian Wilson, the most exacting guy in the studio, why did he leave that in there? You know what I mean? Like,
I know, I always wondered that, too.
I got to know why, and, I'm sure he wouldn't remember, but Brian wouldn't. But, it just always cracked us up. If you happen to be listening to this record, and, of course, which begs the observation, well, yeah, I do happen to be listening to this record. That's why I'm hearing you right now make this announcement. It's just sort of like this insane, funny, awkwardly earnest and sincere message at the end of the Beach Boys Christmas record. So Andy and I had SpongeBob do the happen thing on that. If you happen to be, and Nickelodeon said, well, they were listening, and they said, we got to do that over. Tom makes a mistake there. And we just said, no, it's supposed to sound awkward. That's okay. I didn't want to get into explaining. We were making a joke about an album from 1963 or 64, whenever that record is from. So it's, I'm totally into all that stuff and those great session musicians. I've always just really been fascinated with them. I I was always, like you, I'm sure, a great reader of, teeny little liner notes on
Right.
records and things like that, and kind of trying to connect the dots and go, wow, that guy played on that, and that guy also played on that. And yeah, we have Nino Tempo on this record, and Tommy Morgan, the harmonica player, who, when you talk to that guy, I mean, there's a guy who, I think he said he's done over 4,000 sessions. He
Wow,
told
that's
me.
amazing.
And he has a log of everyone. And, everything from, Twilight Zone, pretty much any 50s Western where you hear a harmonica playing, whether it's, especially the CBS ones, Have Gun Will Travel, and, Gunsmoke and things like that. And then there's a couple Western-themed episodes of the Twilight Zone that Tommy Morgan also plays the harmonica on. That's him. And, Carpenter's records, Close to You and all that.
Right.
Green Acres, Sanford and Son. He's a total rock star to us.
Exactly.
Green Acres is my favorite sitcom of all time. So yeah, we were just, it was like Wayne's World. We were just, we're not worthy.
One of the other things that I recall you saying at some point is that you're also a big fan of those old Hanna-Barbera records that take characters from different shows but tell a story on an album, and that you've tried to recreate that on some of your SpongeBob CDs.
Yes, those Hanna-Barbera records on, what was it, on Colpix?
Right.
Colpix Records. I know Hanna-Barbera had its own label as well at some point, but yeah, it would be like Top Cat and the Gang in Robin Hood and His Merry Men, where they would kind of be reenacting Robin Hood or some crazy stuff with Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, and those voices and those voice actors. I guess the talking equivalent of the musicians that we're talking about. Dawes Butler, Stan Freberg, June Foray, Mel Blanc, people like that were just people that I was oddly fascinated with, even as a kid, and just wanting to figure out, sitting there in Syracuse where snows 4 months of the year and rains 4 months of the year, just going, wow, is there a way that you could do this for a living? How do you do it? How did these guys start? What do you do? And it took me a while to kind of bumble my way towards an actual plan, if you can call it that.
Well, can I ask you just really quickly, because I know we have to wrap this up very shortly.
Sure.
Can you tell me that you're like at the top of the heap in terms of people that do this sort of thing, and yet the way Hollywood, I guess, works, if you're a well-known actor, at some point or another, you're going to be offered a part in a Pixar film or some animated film. What's the difference between, someone like yourself who does this on a regular basis and has done tons of animation work versus someone who gets hired for a single part? I mean, is there something that, people like yourself have in terms of skills that the others don't? Or is it something that someone can quickly learn?
Yeah, are you talking about like celebrities?
Yeah, celebrities.
Casting versus
the
I guess it kind of is like a session musician, character actor thing. I guess it's the difference between a really first call session player who people go, yeah, use that guy. He's dependable. He's good. We don't have to worry about him. And a rock star who's like a little more famous. They're bringing a Q factor to things
right.
that the session guy doesn't have, or sometimes doesn't want to have. And it's kind of an apple and an orange. I guess you're sort of, a lot of times I'm aware of the fact that, or other voiceover people will kind of be kvetching about, I never get, these Pixar movies, we never get a crack at it because it's always these stars, it's always, some person from some sitcom or some movie that they're not voiceover actors. It's two different things. It's like, it's like kabuki versus, modern dance or whatever, and which is true. I mean, I treat the voiceover thing and the people that do it a lot, the Navy SEALs, as I call them, that do it a lot, you really treat it as kind of its own skill, the way that
sure.
a set builder or a carpenter or a lighting guy treats what he does. And, me and myself and the other voice actors, sometimes you do get a little disheartened. You go, man, I'd love to do something in a big feature, but at the end of the day, when I'm talking some of these guys down off the ledge, I say, it's totally different. It really is an apple and an orange. Their job is to be a movie star. Our job is to be a voiceover actor. I don't want to be a movie star, do you? So,
That's
their job is
interesting.
to sound as much like themselves as possible, and what they're bringing to the party is a name that can be put on a poster to make it seem like a prestigious production or whatever. And our job is to sound as little like ourselves as possible. And sometimes you're 8 or 9 people in the same cartoon, and you don't want people doing the math and figuring that out, because that means you're utterly failing.
Right.
So it's kind of a different kettle of fish. But when you get into television animation, which is more of a workaday thing, you don't have those years of research and development that a Pixar movie has. It's kind of down and dirty. You got to crank it out, and even on shows that are popular like SpongeBob or Adventure Time, even when the show is popular, it doesn't really buy you any more time. You still got to feed the monster, as they say. So they need people that are just quick and can come up with stuff on their feet, and it's work. It's work, and I think sometimes the big stars kind of shy away from that, because it's you don't get paid as much. You don't get paid that fabulous money that they make in those features. So a lot of the big name stars won't do weekly television animation the same way that they often demur on doing they won't do the toys or the video games or whatever. A lot of time they have a voice match person, like say like Billy Crystal from Monsters Incorporated, the guy who does all the Monsters Incorporated toys and games and all that. That's a dead-on voice match for Billy Crystal.
Oh, wow.
Is Carlos Alazraqui, who's a friend of mine, and he's a voiceover guy, and he's kind of the stuff that Billy Crystal doesn't want to do because he's busy making movies and being a star. So I guess that would be the main difference. It's kind of a different job description and a different approach, and I think just the way that my brain is wired, I kind of like being the session guy. I don't know if that bespeaks like a lack of ambition or something on my part. Sometimes I go, wow, because they're always going, you should create a show and you should write a movie of your own, and I'm going, I kind of like what I'm doing.
It seems like you're pretty busy too. I mean, you're doing so many different things, and
it's great. And as an actor, one of the great benefits of it is that if you look at my resume, my IMDb, I've gotten to play such a much wider range of characters in animation than would ever have been given to me on camera. I've played handsome superheroes, and I've played villains, and women and kids and monsters and aliens and all kinds of stuff, and I really get off on that. I think that's
great.
The job that I always wanted to do when I was a kid, and I had a brief taste of it recently, of the quote unquote celebrity life, where I flew. I landed after traveling at Thanksgiving. I landed at Los Angeles Airport, and TMZ was there. Because the whole Elmo thing was happening then, and they wanted to talk to me about that. And I'm going, I don't know what I've never met that puppeteer. It's different worlds. I don't know this very tenuous connection that they were trying to make, or I don't know whether they were trying to gin up like a SpongeBob versus Elmo fight. Right. But it just really made me uncomfortable to the point where they're following me to my car and go, we just want to go, Mr. Gunny. And I was shaking. By the time I got home, I was like, I've consciously constructed my life so that I never have to deal with that. It's like it was really unpleasant.
Well,
and I love just getting in my getting my goofy little Prius and doing 2-3 sessions a day and hanging out with voice actors and musicians and animators. They're definitely it's a nice little tide pool of show business. and also they're very pound for pound, I think, the most creative people in the world. I happen to think that these session musicians that Corky Hale, who is married to Mike Stoller from Lieber and Stoller.
Right.
So she doesn't need the money, but but she loves playing, and she still loves playing. And talking to her, I mean, here's some. She played with Liberace. She played with Billie Holiday. She's played with Bjork. She's got this wide-ranging resume that's just amazing to talk about.
And if people like all this discussion about the music, you're going to love It's a SpongeBob Christmas album, because you get to hear all the combination of all these different types of musical styles that you seem to have a real love for.
I do.
And I really want to congratulate you. It's a really genius piece of work, because someone might listen to it and just think it's kids music, but there's a lot going on in there.
Well, one of the great opportunities that it afforded us creatively is that SpongeBob, he's already really popular.
Right.
He's huge. People know who he is. So it's kind of like, it's probably as close as I'll ever get. And Andy Paley and I were talking about this, of just being a songwriter who's writing a song to order for a really popular vocalist, like the old days. Hey, we need something for Andy Williams. Okay, I know Andy Williams' style, and you write something Moon River, you write something or Elvis or whatever. With these characters on SpongeBob and Patrick, his dim-witted starfish friend, and Squidward, the cranky neighbor, and Sandy, the squirrel from Texas. They're, you know what their characters are, so you just have to get inside their head. I know this sounds really insane when you're talking about cartoon characters and pretentious, but, you just go, what would Sandy write a song about? What would she write a Christmas song about? Well, she'd write a song about Texas and how Texas Christmases are different and better, and we don't have Santa Claus, we have Cowboy Kringle Claus, and
right.
he doesn't have a sleigh with reindeer, he's got a magic chuck wagon with flying longhorn steers pulling it, and from there we just go, wow, why don't we name the 8 flying longhorn steers after some of our favorite Texas musicians? Waylon, Willie, Doug after Doug Sam, Flacco after Flacco Jimenez, the accordion player,
right.
Augie Myers, the great Texas organ player from the Sir Douglas Quintet and the Texas Tornadoes, and so we're able to sneak in all these little Easter eggs. And hey, while we're at it, let's make it sound like a Spade Cooley, really slick Spade Cooley Western swing record from 1952. And I don't
That's
know,
great.
And it's only because it's SpongeBob and it's cartoon music that you can paint so wide a canvas. And I always hope secretly that maybe this music is connecting with kids, and maybe this song that sounds kind of like a Neil Sedaka song, "Santa Won't Let You Down," is definitely us ripping off Calendar Girl. Maybe kids will hear this stuff. And
I think you've said before,
and maybe they'll hear the real song later and go, "Wow, this sounds like that song that I used to."
Yeah.
I used to listen to on that crazy SpongeBob Christmas album. So, hopefully we're doing that, and it's a point of pride with Andy Paley and I that we every instrument on when we do these goofy little cartoon records, our budgets are really modest, but we still use real instruments for everything.
Right.
No sampled horns, no sampled drums, no anything. It's all a real human being blowing into or banging on or strumming, whatever it is, a real actual instrument, because I love music and I love musicians, although I don't play anything. I'm the typical guy with a great record collection that can't play an instrument.
Right.
But it's
I just saw the special, and I was happy.
Some of that stuff is having some kind of effect in the kid universe somehow.
Well, I think it is, and I know I've heard you comment before that you think that people underestimate the intelligence of kids and their ability to understand humor, and it's probably also true with music as well.
Well, I think so, and you see, you definitely risk sounding like you're 100 years old when you start talking like this. I feel like when I have to tell people, they go, "Oh, is it a CD?" And I go, "No, it's a digital download. The kids don't buy CDs anymore.
Right.
There's magical little sound particles that come out of your computer." But it's you do start to feel old when you start talking that way and thinking that way. But hey.
Well, I like how you called it a SpongeBob Christmas album.
Yeah, well, that Nickelodeon called it that, much to my surprise. Even though it's digital only, you can only get it on whatever iTunes or Amazon, wherever fine digital music is sold. But I don't know. I may be one of the last people that's. I don't think I've ever bought a digital piece of music. My kids do it all the time.
Yeah.
My son is 15, and he thinks the concept that you actually would fill up your house with pieces of plastic that have one song on each side of them is insane.
And I love that, But I know you have to get going. Can you just tell? I'm sure you've been asked this a million times before, but Tom Kenny, the person, how close is he to SpongeBob?
Well, in some areas, pretty close, I think. Steve Hillenburg has told me that, I was the only person that he ever considered casting as SpongeBob from the get-go. The other actors, he listened to a bunch of people and then picked the ones that worked best, and he really had an amazing instinct. But for me, he knew me, and we knew each other from a prior show that we had worked on, a prior cartoon. It wasn't his creation, but we were both working on this other cartoon for Nickelodeon. It was his first job and my first job, and he said, when he came up with SpongeBob, there was some crossover, not totally across the board, but SpongeBob is a pretty high energy person. I'm a pretty high energy person. SpongeBob's a hard worker and enthusiastic about his work. I'm a hard worker and enthusiastic about his work. SpongeBob, is very gung ho. I'm very gung ho, and I guess there are some, I guess where it would. Mostly where they diverge is that SpongeBob is way more bipolar than me. Like, his highs are really high and his lows are really low. He'll be laughing and running around like a maniac 1 minute, and then something will cut him to the quick, and he'll just be sobbing and heartbroken. And I'm not quite that that bipolar, but I'm working on it.
Well, you've delivered so much great comedy and entertainment through the years, and you're truly a living legend, and it's a real thrill for me to be able to speak to you. We've been talking with Tom Kenny. He's the voice of SpongeBob, and I hope everyone this holiday season gets an opportunity to check out It's a SpongeBob Christmas, and also to listen to the music, which Tom had a big hand in co-writing and performing on. Tom, thank you so much for coming on the Sounds of Film, and I hope you have a nice holiday season.
I've got to tell Andy Paley about your show. He's much more knowledgeable about this stuff than I am, even.
Well, I'd be happy to talk to him if he's ever interested in coming on the program.
Oh, he'd love to. It's right in his wheelhouse. And I thank you for calling me a living legend. As somebody who's been killed a couple of times on Twitter, it's great to be still living.
Well, no problem. And any last holiday message you'd like to say to our listeners?
Well, I would just want to say that this holiday season, be nice to each other. You guys rock. You're the best. Thanks for interviewing me, Tom. Oh, and Gary says Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and all that.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much, Tom, for coming on The Sounds of Film.
Thanks, Tom. Great to be here.
Bye-bye. Take it easy.